Hey everybody, I'm doing a new segment on my social media channels called Meet My Horror, as in horror, scary, bull friends. I thought it would be cool just to talk to my friends about their favorite horror movies, what they do for work, and also just some of their hobbies. So my first friend up on this segment is Angela Maldonado. Angela, thank you so much for agreeing to be my kind of like guinea pig in doing this because I don't really know how it's going to work out. You and I never really plan what we're going to say. We just sort of go, right?
I think that's the beauty of us. We don't plan what we're going to say.
No, which is good and bad. um, you tell the viewers how you and I actually met.
You are my boss of sorts. You're my senior producer at Spectrum News, doing the morning shift. Those lovely like 3 a.m.s, 4 a.m.s in the morning, keeping ourselves entertained in a cold, dark control room.
It was crazy. So Angela and I both came from news. We're both doing different things in communications now, but yes, I remember what I loved about you because we got to know each other in that job because when you work that early in the morning, you become very close with the people that you're working with. And that was such a good group in that morning team. And we're still friends with them. Angela, you and I are. And I always remember you wearing your poncho because it was so cold all the time.
I
I
called
think
it
I
my
even have a picture of you in the poncho.
no, I called it my frump core because it was like I had the layers of like it was office at the bottom, but comfortable with because I think normcore was happening back then. So I went with frump core because I had the poncho, like the pants over a dress, but professional. And then, in the dark room, like how you would dress at 3 in the morning trying to go to work. So that was, I still have the poncho. It's at my job where I'm at now. So
I love it. I remember coming to work one day. I got through my whole shift and realized that my hoodie was backwards. It was on inside out, like inside out the whole time. And the ticket was, but you're so tired at like 2 or 3 in the morning that I just to get into the car was, a feat for
yeah.
me. It was so hard. But you and I, like I said, started in news and we've continued our friendship after, and your husband, Brian, who I love very much. And I wanted you on first because, we always have really good conversations. I know you've been following kind of what I do on the side with this show. But I wanted to start off with first of all, do you like horror movies or not? If no, that's fine.
Well, I do in a sense that like I watched them growing up, probably when I shouldn't have, but it was like the 90s and 80s. But I had a really good friend who loves them. And, he and I were roommates for many, many years. And a lot of the movies that I know and like that are my favorites were because of, him. And he's like, just watch it, Angela, you're gonna like it, kind of like because that's what you kind of have to do with me. You just have to put it on and tell me to watch it, and then I'll probably like it because I can be stubborn and go like, no, I'm not going to do it on my own. But he introduced me to a lot of cool movies like Leslie Vernon. That's a good one. It's one of my favorites. The Scream movies, like we'd come back 2 a.m. from the bar and just put in Scream 2. And just like
To me, that was where Nev Campbell was. What was that phase in her life? She was very like badass, like fighter girl, like from part one to part two. Like she even kind of her body, like she transformed. She looked like it kind of went from like Sydney to Sydney Terminator. It was just
well, yeah, because she wore like she was definitely like the contrast with the sorority girls. She was like in the boots and the jeans, but then for fun, I love Parker Posey, so we'd put on afterwards like Scream 3 would be a favorite to put on. 2 a.m. We're coming back and then just like watching Parker Posey. My lawyer liked that.
I think Scream 3 is underrated. Way back when it came out, I don't think it was everyone's favorite in the franchise, but over the years, I really feel like that one has become more liked. And the memes of Courtney Cox's bangs.
Things. I don't know. It's Parker Posey like forever for that. Every time like I think of I think of her as Gail Weathers and her and what's the guy from Felicity? He's the
Oh, Scott
Foley.
Speedman,
Or Scott Foley. Is
Scott
that him?
Foley. I
And
get
he's
him.
like, I don't even know what a pariah is. But it's like the reason why he and I put the movie on because Parker Posey just steals it every time with
I
everything.
have her memoir like underneath my laptop to prop it up. It's one of my books. So I was gonna show it. Let's see. This is gonna be a mess, but I'll just put it back. Okay. See?
Oh my god.
I love Parker Posey. I mean, you and I both have a mutual love for Parker. Dazed and Confused.
That's Brian's favorite movie, and so he loves her in that.
Party Girl.
Party Girl.
Yeah.
That's so I think he was very generous in kind of showing me some movies that would kind of be good transition movies, or they weren't like crazy gory because there are some hardcore movies and he would watch those, but the Scream movies are a big one. And
I think Scream is a good introduction for people who don't really like horror isn't their thing necessarily. But what's good about Scream is that it's kind of comedy too. It's like a nod and a wink, at the camera about kind of how horror movies are supposed to be. And it's so self-aware. So I feel like that's a good one to kind of get your feet wet.
I think if they made the Final Destination movies in that kind of way, then I think I probably would watch a whole bunch of Final Destination movies. Can you imagine if they did a movie of like, how they did it with Scream and a movie about Final Destination, a movie within a movie on how they made it?
That would be really good if they took that concept.
Yeah, because I don't know, that was kind of hardcore. I remember he would say, okay, you can watch the behind the scenes, like it's not real, because sometimes I don't know, it looked those kind of scenes were intense, so he would kind of like, no, they aren't that crazy, this is how they do it. So he's very generous in kind of being a guide in that way. And so yeah, that's kind of a series where you can get me to watch one or two, but not, I may not sit down for the rest.
Speaking of Final Destination, I never forget part 2 every time. And I see a bunch of memes on this too, and it's totally true. I saw one the other day where it shows a log truck, like logs on the back of I don't know if you remember part 2. It's a car accident and all the logs get loose.
And it goes through the windshield.
Yes. And so anytime I see anything like that, or anything with like, the road equipment that's cylinder, I can't be behind it because all I picture is that stupid thing coming through the windshield. So I like get out of the way. And you know how driving here in Austin is anyway. I mean, nothing would happen to us because we're never moving. We're just sitting still. So it would just like plop down and like total our car, but we'd probably be fine.
I mean, I think there's plenty of nightmare fuel like to go around in all those movies. So, but I remember like as a kid, I remember seeing Psycho, the old one, and I guess the original one, and I literally I didn't close my shower for about a couple months. So I literally kept it cracked. I don't know. I can't remember how old. I was probably way too young to be watching it. Probably, 10 or at least like a child. And I remember just not keeping the shower all the way closed for that reason. Somehow that made sense.
Yeah, Psycho is one of those movies. It never scared me, but I just loved Alfred Hitchcock and what he did with his films. And I thought that was one of those films though that was for people, it did that. It made them scared of the shower. For me, there was a movie called Salem's Lot that came out in the late 70s. It was a television movie. And it was like about vampires. And I always remembered this one scene where there was a guy. It's actually what's her name's dad, who is an actor, Juliette Lewis's dad. Is his name David Lewis? Or anyway, her dad was an actor and he was in this movie. And so it's this bedroom, like I think it was a priest or whatever, that he walks by the bedroom, or he opens the bedroom door and it's all dark. And you just see somebody rocking back and forth in a chair, like a rocking chair. And his eyes are glowing. And my mom still has to this day my rocking, like the rocking chair in her bedroom that she would rock me in. So when I would walk past my parents' bedroom and I'd see that rock, I couldn't look because I would just picture him rocking back and forth with these like glowing eyes. So your psycho shower scene is like that for me, where I just ran to my room and closed the door.
Well, when you say rocking chair, I envision the little clown in Poltergeist. Like, and
I
when
always
he
thought,
looks over, I'm just like, oh, that little clown, and then eventually it grabs the kid, and it's just.
I know people have real clown phobias, but I never have. I always thought, this is probably how morbid I am, I always thought the clown was funny. Like, it always made me laugh because I just thought it was ridiculous. So it still makes me laugh to this day when I see him drag the kid under the bed. It's so funny to me. That's why, you know, I've mentioned a lot on my show when I interview different people that my dad liked scary movies too, and he would laugh at them, like at Jason, you know, from Friday the 13th. He thought Jason was funny. So,
Because even back then, like, I mean, you look at even just the evolution of whether it's story or effects, and sometimes, as you see, like now we look back and like it looks really, oh, that looks the fakest blood you can ever imagine. But so we can look at these movies and find the hilarity in it, but it's the jump scares, it's the
yeah.
suspense of it all. And I feel like now I can watch Poltergeist and be jumpy, but then also find it hilarious when he's like, you removed the headstones, but you didn't remove the bodies, and then like
Yeah, when he's
just all the one-liners from that movie.
Craig T. Nelson is screaming out in the front yard. Yes, I remember that. And I think too, like with horror movies today, so the 80s, especially when we were growing up, they were very campy. It was a lot of slasher flicks. Of course, you had Nightmare on Elm Street and those types of films, but none of them were like sophisticated. They, you know, like, whereas today there's always this intellectual, I don't know, part of me just wants to go back to having the cheap slasher thriller movies, if that's what they are. Now it's always this introspective. They always have to kind of make it to where they're kind of making fun of them in the movie. You know, like Scream does that. I love Scream, but sometimes I just want it to go back to being where it's like an old school slasher that has horrible special effects, that just is terrible acting, you know, all of it. Like, I don't know why. I just love that genre of horror, but everybody has their thing, you know?
Well, you just want to take it back to like the essential scary story. And I think
yeah,
like now the trouble is we have all the things and access to all the, research, however you want to call it, that you can't, it's always a constant thing to try to top that and have a different take and what's the fresh thing. The only thing culturally was, I remember when The Conjuring came out, because I love like the movies like based on a true story or true events. And I remember sitting in the theater thinking like, if this were a Mexican family, like it would be done. And I even I performed a story at Testify because of it. Cause I was just like, it literally happened to me. Like how like The Conjuring started out, it happened to my family, and my mom like shut it down in like a minute. But they went through the whole movie of like, oh, pictures are moving. Let's just sleep in the living room. And I was like, these people don't have Jesus in their life. Like they're just sitting there. And it was just like the craziest thing to watch. It's scary, but I just,
no Mexican family would have stayed in that house. They would have been gone.
No.
Like the first day. It's the same thing when I think about, this isn't horror related, but when you see like shows like a talk show, or well, back in the day, there were the Ricky Lakes and those, but those are, some of that stuff was kind of seemed like fake. But I mean, even when you see like these reality shows where they're about disciplining kids, and they're kids that are like talking back to their parents, and they're not usually Mexican families. And all I think of is, ooh, if that were like my mom, it would be done. Like my parents always allowed me to like speak my mind, but there was a limit. and so I, even observing in stores, sometimes I hear kids talk to their parents like really nasty, and I just think I would be dead. I wouldn't have survived. I would have been dragged out of the store. I mean, there's no way.
and also being a girl, like there was no getting out of the house for me to even be in that position. I mean, up through uh well, even now, my mom will still like, I'm gonna wait up for you, or call
Yeah.
me when you get home. So like there was the curfew, forget about it. Like I wasn't going
Yeah.
anywhere.
My mom, and I love her. My parents were both, my mom's still alive, my dad passed, but both great parents. But my mom was very strict. Unless I know them, I'm not letting you go over there unless I know the
Mhm.
parents. And it was very, very strict.
Did
And
they
that,
do the math, the going out math? Like,
no.
okay, you're going out with your friend. You're going to a movie that's an hour and a half or how long, and then you're gonna have something to eat after. That's like an hour, and then if you're gonna go here, and she would do that. She would add up the time, and then like that would be when I would come home.
I do think that, like, especially Mexican families, that they're harder on the girls when it comes to the going out part.
Mhm.
I definitely think that. But I think, a little sheltered because my mom was, I think, more of the enforcer.
Mm.
And she just didn't want me around people she didn't know.
Yeah.
She didn't know their parents, or she just didn't like the kid, like she thought they were bad news. I could only ride my bike like right in front of my
Yep.
house. Like it
Yep.
was, but all of those things did. There are a lot of kids in my neighborhood that did get in trouble later on. And she was right about most of the people she didn't want me to be around. So, your parents usually do know things, but at that time, you're not thinking about that.
Exactly. But the beauty of that was her radar was off if I was in the house. So that was like the perfect opportunity for my brother and I to stay up and watch horror movies and watch
Yeah.
movies that we probably shouldn't have been watching. Like, I think what channel used to be, they used to do those like Friday night movies, and it would be like, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
I think,
Um,
like, I want to say TBS used to do some
Yeah,
of
I think
that.
so. And we would just stay up all in the summer, just pull out the sleeper bed, and my brother and I would just sleep in the living room and just like watch movies. And yeah, at night they would play Nightmare on Elm Street, like all the Jason movies, and we had no business like watching, that stuff. But she didn't. I mean, as long as we're under the roof, we weren't on the streets, so I guess we got away with it.
Yeah. I would, my mom didn't like that I watched horror movies, but they let me, except um she would never let me watch like The Exorcist,
Oh
or
yeah,
anything that had to do with like possession or devil, like, because I do think, I mean, there's something different with movies that contain religion and horror, like, and at least my mom didn't like that.
yeah.
Still doesn't like that. I think because those are so much more real to
Mhm.
me than Jason. Like, that's all. It's funny. It's not real. But like when you think of the Conjuring,
Yep.
The Exorcist, or movies like that, I mean, there are documented cases of these things. It's like, or they're based on the real story. Those are scarier to me than, and I'm not usually really into those movies as much. I like The Conjuring, but I think I tend to kind of gravitate to the horror that is less realistic. Maybe that's more for me, but when it's too real, it freaks me out a little bit. However, I'm an ID channel junkie, so I'll sit there and watch real life documentaries all day about people getting killed, and I'm just sitting there mesmerized. It's
Well, Well, I mean, yeah, the true crime is a whole nother beast. But like, I figure like, and as far as Exorcist, the funny thing was like, I read the book. Like, I've read the Exorcist book, and obviously, like the different, it is different when it comes to religion, because especially like, growing up, going to church, going to Sunday school, going to like getting your going through confirmation and all that stuff, it feels very kind of real. And the freaky thing was, in the book, it starts out like that. It doesn't happen in the movie, I don't believe, but in the book, like the first signs of it is like knocking in the walls. And that's what happened at my house after my brother died. And so like that spurred my mom to kind of like talk to my religious aunt and get this whole prayer. She, had to say this prayer and holy water. And my mom, that's like, she was so religious about it, or at least close to, she prays every day, that it's a real thing for a lot of people and anything like that. So those movies definitely like hit closer to home than just like, oh, a crazy guy that comes up in your dreams. Like that doesn't feel, that's kind of fantastical. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That I have to discern certain movies because they are having a new Exorcist movie. I saw a trailer for it.
I did a
It's like
reaction to
two
the new
kids.
Exorcist. And what I said in my reaction was, oh no, it's like, well, of course, like the original Exorcist, Linda Blair played Reagan, and the mother, Ellen Burstyn, is back, Reagan's mom from the original. But what I said was, okay, in the original Exorcist, there was one. They have two girls.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. There's something about evil girls or little girls that just really creeps me out. Like some like the Conjuring movies or like Conjuring 2, or even like Megan, like anything with like little girls that have gone off the rails and they're evil. There's something really scary about that. So when they showed both of them in the preview, I was like, wow, that's double the crazy. So
it's like double the demon, double the fun.
And David Gordon Green is the one directing, and he did the Halloween trilogy, the new Halloween.
So are you still going to see it? Are you going to watch it?
Yes, I'm going to go see when it comes out, when The Exorcist comes out, I'm going to go see it. I don't know. We'll see how it is. The preview looked really good, but you never know from previews. Sometimes previews are really great, and then the movie falls flat. So we'll see. I'm hoping it'll be good. But now, like on a different topic, since we've like talked all about horror, which I love, that's my favorite thing in the world. And I even changed up my background. I'm usually at a different angle, but you can see my Halloween poster behind me.
I know. I'm always like reading.
And all my albums, like, you know how I love Debbie Gibson.
Yes.
Which is so funny. Like there's Jason and then there's Debbie Gibson on this. It's just ridiculous. White Snake. John Cougar, you know how he was like John Cougar Mellencamp, John Mellencamp. So Boston, Nirvana, like this is where you and I and your husband Brian are all very similar, and that we're kind of like all over the place with music and films, and that's what I love. And I have to have Brian on,
Yeah, he definitely can like have that perspective. You and him can talk about vinyl.
I just think we would go on for hours, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's definitely.
For those of you who don't know, like Angela's husband Brian, he is very knowledgeable in all things film, all things music. He has a really good, like he absorbs all of that. Like he knows more than I do because he just retains it. But he's really like, what I love about Brian is that he has a perspective on all of it and can just give you like what they were doing when they were making that album, the background about the film, what was really going on behind the scenes. So I live for that. I live for all that kind of stuff. But another thing about you that's really cool that you do, I know you've done improv. You did improv years ago, which is still something that's in your life, but you do a show called Testify. You're a producer for Testify.
Yes.
And Testify, explain what that is for people out there in the Austin area, especially.
Well, Testify is a curated storytelling show that happens monthly. And by curated, we mean that whenever you apply to perform on the show or submit a story, more like, you get matched up with a producer, and that producer, like me, will work with you every step of the way to get your story stage ready. So we are good ground for people who have never done storytelling, but have something, and we help them shape it up. We help them get ready to perform it on stage, and kind of take some of that kind of nervousness that can come around it. We take care of all the logistics. We tell you, answer any questions, look out for anything that you're wondering about, workshop your story. And then we're very aware of making sure that you have the best possible experience to share the story. Because we do, a lot of people tell true and personal stories. So some of them are humorous, or some of them are really serious or sad, and they span the whole gamut of topics. So we really make sure that people are comfortable and ready to tell these stories on our stage. And we even take it another step that not only do we help them help curate topics, but even the order we place people in. So we're very conscious of the order we put our storytellers in. We don't pick the lineup or the format until after we've listened to everybody, and then we kind of arrange who goes first, second, third, and so on. So to make sure that the flow is there, so you're not kind of coming off of a lighthearted funny story with a super serious like sad story. So we're very kind of aware on keeping the flow going, keeping the whole feel and energy good. So I think that we are constantly uh, looking at that and checking with the storytellers to make sure that the show is good from the inside out, from the audience and people on stage. And a lot of the people who kind of come back again and again are people who, you know, were in our audience, they've told, and they bring people. So we, I think, are good ground for the first time storyteller.
And you yourself are a storyteller, and this is something that you really have a passion for, right? Like for you, this is, what is it for you? You know, what is it about it that, because since I've known you, I know this is a little different than, you know, I'm doing improv, but that's also storytelling in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But what is it about all of that that really reels you in? Because you're a person that is just really committed to it. I mean, you do it every week.
Yeah, I think, well, on a kind of basic level, I love helping people, you know, workshop these stories to the stage. On a personal level, it's also a nice kind of challenge for me to push myself narratively to tell stories that are personal or um, develop topics that I haven't really told people. Or, you know, a lot of my writing is either, you know, personal or journalistically we're telling other people's stories. So for me to turn it inward, it's still sometimes a challenge. And so Lottie and Mark, the other producers, are really good at like turning the process to me too and helping me grow as a writer. So I really love that challenge.
Is that the cat?
Molly. Yes, she wants to come out of the she wants to like leave the room.
I can hear her. Molly, like, for y'all, we like to joke about Molly being
free Molly.
Like Molly's, she's, what is it? What do you call her? Kind of like the angsty teenager, or
she's a jerk. She's a jerk.
Yeah.
But she's like, don't pin me in, but don't touch me, you know, like give me all the pets. So yeah.
She's like my mom's cat Simba. We talk about this all the time.
I need to meet Simba. I need to meet him.
He would probably like you. He doesn't like me, but that's fine.
I just have to keep chicken in my pocket, then he'll love me.
He'll love you. He will follow you everywhere. So storytelling's your big thing, but for you, in terms of like your career, you also are in communications, right?
Mm-hmm. I am a content producer, multimedia content producer for rural capital area. I work alongside one of our Spectrum coworkers, Brian Hernandez. And so we both handle communications and content for our rural capital workforce boards. So it's all the counties surrounding Austin, Lockhart, Caldwell, Bastrop, you know, LaGrange, Williamson, all that, Cedar, and so all those kind of counties. So sometimes my day takes me driving to San Marcos or Bastrop. Anything. Molly, oh my God. Can I let her out? You can like cut this part out.
No, I want to leave it in. This is so. The purpose of these Meet My Horrible Friends is to be unfiltered and to not be edited. It's just going to be like,
no, you gotta
that's
cut that.
What it's going to be. It's a mess because we're all messes in our own way. I wanted to say though, in this thing, and I've told you before, like, so we both worked in TV together, and you were a producer, and you know that's a whole other world. News is a different kind of communication. But you and I both branched out and worked, you know, I work for an engineering consulting firm now. I worked in city, but we both have done, our jobs are still very similar. And what I want to say to you is that, I mean, Angela, just y'all, she shoots and edits her stuff. She writes. She has to be creative and come up with different ways to communicate the things in her workplace. And I'm very proud of you, like from where
Oh,
you started and where you are, because it is definitely a different world going from what we were
mhm.
doing to, because it took me a minute to get
Yeah.
comfortable. Remember, we would talk about it all the time. Like when I first left news, I was like, what did I do?
Mhm.
That first year was rough.
Well,
It was rough.
Well, because I think coming from especially what is probably different from what people experience, like when you go to work at like 2 or 3 in the morning, you not only are on a different sleep schedule, work schedule, you really bond with those people because they know how it is to wake up so early. They have to go to bed earlier than everyone else. They don't work holiday. They work holidays. They're not
Right.
off. So I mean, people would vacation together. Like that's how really close and just insurance, like entwined you were with your coworkers. And then to go from into a different field where you're the only one that speaks your language. It's really, it gets really, it's a big jolt. You feel kind of lonely. You feel like people just you have to explain a lot. Like you have to translate yourself to
I
everyone.
always joke, and my friends in communications all say the same thing. When when you're the communications person, people always seem to forget to tell you the most important thing that you need to know. You're an afterthought. You're like the
Mhm.
last person sometimes to find out some vital information. And I also think people have a misconception of what communications professionals
Mhm.
do. They think if you, like, for instance, if you have a social media job, oh, that's easy. You just post stuff on social media all day. The person I work with now, that's our social media person, there's like a strategy behind all of it. The writing has to be a certain brand and fit the brand. Like
Mhm.
everything is very strategic. And it isn't just, oh, hey guys, like it's not you just throwing something up. Same with like the things we write, you with press releases or doing your videos. Like that's the thing. I think they look at it from an outside view and think it's just easy because we're not like we're not like what is it, like curing cancer or doing something. That those jobs are of course very important, but our jobs also have very important elements, and sometimes I think they get written off as sort of it's easy. It's
It,
not.
no, it's the ultimate double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, it's kind of so accessible because everyone communicates, but it's like it's pretty easy, but then it's also I want the most all the results. So it's like, can I either is it so easy for me to post that I can be looped in last minute, but then also give me all the stats and numbers and I want all this in-depth strategy and why aren't we viral or why aren't, we have all the people. So it
Yeah.
is definitely an experience. And what my colleague or Brian would say, managing expectations. So I think you get good at that.
Yeah, and that's my boss says that too, like managing expectations. It's really important in what we do. But again, I have to say I'm very proud of like everything that you've accomplished. You've won a number of awards in the job that you're in, which is great, for the things that you've done. And so yeah, I love seeing my friends being successful and doing well, especially when you and I have both had all the conversations of the ups and the downs, and we still have those conversations. You know, we're just all doing our best, I think,
Well,
day to
yeah,
day, just trying
and
to get through it.
I mean it's the ultimate like when people think about creativity, because not only if creativity is needed for your job, but then also it's very you can kind of like compare yourself to others. So you're always in the kind of, am I good enough? Is this good enough? Am I writing better? And so, but it's also your job. So it's very kind of a dance you do every day is like, because you can sit and edit and you're in all this stuff and then you're like, this is crap, this is crap. Because, it's this creative endeavor, but it's also your work. So you have to have that kind of
And I think
checking with yourself.
what I always explain to people too is well, any job you're going to have critiques. People are going to critique your work and they're going to give you feedback. But when your communications and your job is to communicate stuff to people, you're getting a lot of feedback on how you're like you have people tear up your, it's not a bad thing per se, but people sort of tear your stuff apart because they want it a certain way. But that you have to be really like thick-skinned and tough to kind of deal with that, because just think about if somebody walked into anybody else's job and said, you know, I want this change, this change, this change, this change, this, like you're a doctor, I want this done, this, like it's a little different in that way. So you kind of, I feel like all of us insecure people, it's like a, I don't know what it is, a self-torture thing. We all end up going into fields that just sit there and tear us all apart.
Yeah, and then the power is you get to a certain point where you can kind of like look and start kind of gravitating to what you're interested in and carve your own way. Because I remember sitting as an 18-year-old, like in my first like college mass comm class, and the professor going, "Oh, you guys want to be journalists? Like, look around you. Everyone here wants to be a journalist." And so I remember thinking, like, "Holy crap, I got to do something." And so it made me want to look at internships and try and figure out what I wanted to do. Because it's true, you can, go to school and you study, but then you get to figure out what you like. Like if you want horror movies, or you want, you're health focused. And I think that's the beauty of doing communications. You can really dig into what you're interested in or what you're passionate about and kind of go that way.
Yeah, and I think both of us have been able to, and me just within the last 3 to 4 years have tried to really do stuff outside of work that's just mine. Yours is, doing your improv and doing Testify. Mine is this show. I think that's what the cool part about being in the fields that we're in. We're kind of able to springboard and do stuff that's just for us because of our skill set. So that's the great part about that. So I'll end with this because we've talked forever, because you and I can also talk forever. But I just thought of a question. If your life could be a horror movie, what horror movie would you want it to be?
Gosh, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
I would have told you that before, but I didn't know. I just thought about it. Like I said, this is sort of like this is the first time I've done this. So I'll probably make them shorter, but
no, that's a really good question. I think, gosh, because like also I was like, oh, this means I'm gonna to be scared. I have to go like Scream 3, Parker Posey. I could run around with her, and then like that'd be great. So
and she almost made it to the end too.
She almost did, and I was rooting for her, but the real Gail has to make it through.
I know she's still making it through. Like in 2023, she's still making it. She never died. Yeah. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining me today and doing this first sort of meet my. I don't know. I was telling Angela, for y'all that are watching, like how I came up with that title. I was driving to Luby's to go eat something, and suddenly it popped in my head. I'm like, I think it'd be cool to do a segment with like my friends and call it Meet My Horrorable Friends. Because people would think that that's bad, but it's not. It's kind of spinning off of horror,
like horror.
But these are like where ideas, I don't know how you are with creative stuff, but I'll be in the shower, I'll be driving, like stuff hits me like at the weirdest times. I get these ideas like, oh, I should do that. Is that what it does?
Yeah, it's like at night or in the morning. I'll wake up and it's like 6 a.m. I'm like, no, we can still sleep, and it's just like all this stuff. So yeah, it hits me like when I want to sleep, or early in the morning or late at night as I'm trying to like wind down. Then my mind starts like going. So
that's what I do. Well, cool, Angela. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. And if people want to learn more about Testify, I will put that link in the caption. It's Testify ATX.
TestifyATX.com. And we're also on YouTube channel. We do post all of our performer stories on our YouTube channel. So Testify ATX YouTube, you can find them there. Follow us on Facebook. We push out the videos there and promote the show. And you can also buy tickets direct on testifyatx.com.
And then your work, the job that you have, say it all because
it is a mouthful. Workforce Solutions, rural capital area. So workforcesolutionsrca.com.
They're in Austin. Actually helps find people employment.
Yes, so it's all the features of, you can get job counseling. They can walk you through work in Texas. They can help you with resumes. There's a space you can use our space to do interviews or computers, anything like that. And then they can connect you to programs that you're eligible for. So we have a whole bunch of free services and people to kind of walk you through all that stuff.
Yay. Well, I'm sure I'll see you soon. But again, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for your platform and that you bring joy to people who love horror movies and just you're being a great person.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna end with me.